Zoom stream.
Yeah, not just Zoom recording.
Hey
We're learning as we go.
man, you're doing great.
I'm doing something.
Things are happening.
All right.
Hello and welcome to the
Hold
No
up. Hold on.
Gimme
Hold,
podcast.
hold on. Let me record.
I see you.
Now go.
I had a premature intro, guys. I'm sorry. But hello and welcome to the No Gimmies podcast. Hello and welcome to the No Gimmies YouTube stream. Aaron and I are just now getting used to this. It's lovely to have you guys with us. We just concluded game two of the NBA Finals. The Oklahoma City Thunder come out with a pretty decisive victory, 123 to 107. SGA, clockwork, again, 30 plus points. Um, Pretty impressive game, pretty impressive bounce back, if I had to say so. Aaron, my co-host Aaron Bullwinkle is here as always. Aaron, please give me your initial kind of assessment of how game two went.
I mean, I think in a lot of ways, I wasn't really surprised by the outcome of the game. We had talked offline with our boy Yo Rush about what we thought the outcome would be, and I thought OKC would win this game by 15. And for the most part, I thought it was going to be a game that was more or less reflective of them settling into the series a little bit more and looking more defensively. I mean, I don't want to say assertive because obviously, considering what they looked like in the first half of the last game, but I actually thought this defensive performance was far more impressive. I messaged you at halftime and I posted on threads. One of the things you could really see in this game was the Thunder making a very concerted effort to stay home a little bit more and run guys off the 3-point line. And in general, it reflected to me just a team that looked more comfortable and settled in themselves on that side of the ball and offensively, obviously, as well. The ball movement was significantly better. They had 25 assists to their 13 in the first game. They were doing a much better job of making the secondary and tertiary pass and also just how they got into their stuff. You know, instead of dribbling the ball out to then get into a pick and roll, they were attacking early, but then letting the ball movement kind of dictate if they didn't have that first look. I just thought this looked like the Thunder team that we've seen over the course of the entire season, but in a little bit more control. They weren't rushing to the ball and trying to force turnovers in the same way. They let their kind of comfort in their defensive scheme dictate their pressure in this game.
No, I would completely agree with that. The way that I saw this team kind of maneuver about, um, Oklahoma City, they seem more disciplined as well. I'm not sure if that was something else that you noticed. They went with some more consistent lineups. They went with the double big lineup a little bit more with Isaiah Hartenstein. They went a little bit more with Kenrich Williams. You didn't see
Which
AJ Mitchell until
No. And you and
garbage
I
time.
talked because we expected to see Kenrich Williams in this game, and you could tell the impact that he has because of the switchability that he provides for them defensively and the versatility they provide. Came up with a couple big offensive rebounds, made some smart plays defensively, and had some impact in the game in the second quarter in a way we expected.
Well, he's just got good enough size. I mean, I think you and I can agree that he's like what, about a 6'6", 6'7", if you're being generous. But what's nice about him is not just the height, it's his discipline. He's
Yes.
the guy who really knows when to take his shots. He knows when to be physical with someone who has the ball that he's being an on-ball defender with. He has a steady veteran presence. You and I had talked about this. Yeah, like you said, David Rushing and you and I were in a group chat and we were talking about how we expected game two to go. And you said immediately OKC wins by 15. I looked at the stat line. OKC was favored by 11, and I said I'll put $100 on that right now. A very smart bet. I mean, a very. It felt to me whenever you look at these games, Oklahoma City has never had back to back, very difficult, whenever they're facing a similar opponent, they haven't lost back-to-back games
Only
more
twice this whole season.
twice this entire season.
Yeah.
And
And what the,
it just it's not surprising whenever you also realize the home court advantage that they have. they've always had a incredible home crowd. And the commentators Mike Breen, Richard Jefferson, Doris Burke, they all commentated on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we know that the OKC home crowd is always going to be always involved in their games and very activated. One of the things too that OKC has continued to show over and over again, and we should have known this with a series where they're now allowing for more rest on home games during these playoffs. Right now, we get 2 days instead of the 1 day. OKC always kind of gets back to the basic principles of how they play after they have one of these games that looks bad for them. And that's what we saw here once again, is just playing within themselves, offensively playing letting them dictate more of what they're doing instead of letting the defense kind of force them into things. Shai just played a much more under control game. I thought he did a far better job of getting to his spots and not forcing shots. He was a little less aggressive in the first half, but just generally speaking, I just liked the look of his pace and his approach. I felt the same way with Jalen Williams. I thought the stuff with Jalen Williams in the pick and roll when Shai was off the floor in the beginning of the second quarter, where Indiana really got hurt in terms of both guards were off the floor. Indiana couldn't find a way to generate offense, and J-Dub was great in his synergy with Hartenstein in the pick and roll. In general, he's been really good as a pick and roll operator in this whole series, and it's something that I think is going to be a more go-to thing for them later in games when they have to diversify their offensive attack a little bit more, which was one of the problems in game one. And then obviously we have to give a shout out to Aaron Wiggins coming in, giving really good minutes. And it wasn't just the shooting and the offense. Yeah, he played well defensively. He stood up really well against Siakam in the second quarter. He made some smart passes at the end of the third quarter there, where he was on drives and cutting the cutter on the backside there, which was some stuff that we had talked about that they lost when Hartenstein wasn't on the floor. And you saw Hartenstein do it a couple times with both Chet and Alex Caruso. But Wiggins also recognizing that as an offensive attacker, it just diversified so much of what the Thunder's offense looked like, because now this guy's knocking down 27-foot shots, and the Pacers defense had to rush out to get out to him, and he was really creating some problems. So good for him and giving them some really good minutes. I saw Kevin O'Connor posted he had 7 points in total in the Western Conference Finals, the whole series. I think he finished with 14.
24 points tonight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 24. Wow, you got up to that. I checked out a little bit.
I'm sorry. Let me make sure that I double check that. I just want to. No, I'm sorry. He had 18 points, but he was 24 in the minutes that he played.
Yeah, I didn't think he had gotten that high, but I checked out the last 2 minutes to make sure I got my. I was did something happen in garbage time?
You know how you and I feel about single game plus minus. That's not like a stat that you and I really put a lot of value in. Yeah. But yeah, a plus 24 and being 18 points, he was very, very, very clutch off the bench for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's very nice to get those kind of the kind of production that you and I were talking about that Oklahoma City was missing. It seemed like they moved the ball a lot more. I had a conversation with you about this, and we were talking about how many more passes the Indiana Pacers had than Oklahoma City Thunder. I actually haven't been able to find if they had updated game 2 about the number of passes. But
I was trying to find it too. Yeah.
It did feel like the Oklahoma, but did it not feel like to you that Oklahoma City was moving the ball a lot more?
I mean, 100%.
Yeah. SGA in game 1, he had 3 assists. In game 2, 8 assists. So just from there, just from your initial ball creator, seeing a guy who is creating more for other people by making the extra pass. And I'm sure at some point, whenever you and I actually get the real number, I wasn't able to find it. But I do think that would be interesting to see. I think Oklahoma City moved the ball a lot more. Chet was finding the ball in a lot more open space.
Yeah.
I feel like that was also pretty clutch for the Oklahoma City Thunder to be able to generate more offense with a guy with Chet Holmgren's profile, with his wingspan, being in the dunker spot, hitting knockdown threes. It was very nice to have his production, because he went 2 for 11. And
I mean, the appearance of Chet late in the first quarter, obviously, where he gets 7 straight points there. You could see his confidence building, because early he looked a little rattled and frazzled. He fumbled the ball on a couple, run outs, but he settled in. And then I thought one of the things going back to the passing that was really indicative of just a change in mindset and a change of approach happened in the second quarter when SGA got kind of stymied on a drive. Hartenstein cut baseline to give him a release, and then Caruso filled in on the backside. So it was a boom, boom, boom to a wide open three on Caruso. And I thought
I really love that play.
and I thought in the first game, that play would have ended in Shea taking a turnaround instead of what happened. And to me, that was a microcosm of just how much more Oklahoma City focused on popping the ball and moving it around.
No, that's actually a really good point because you already brought up the fact that they only had 13 assists in the first game and then they had 25 in this one. The ball movement was crucial. That was why I brought up the point about Oklahoma City's lack of passing. There was a lot of, and you said this in the text thread that we were in, but you were saying that there was a lot of one pass or zero pass possessions for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I don't think that Oklahoma City did anything better defensively. I think they closed the game out offensively. Did you feel
Yeah.
the same way about that?
No, I agree. I disagree. I think defensively, the way that they focused on running the shooters off the 3-point line really stymied a lot of clear looks that the Pacers were getting in the first game. I thought just the way that they stayed home instead of trying to go for the turnovers led to far less open looks on the once Indiana gets the ball movement and kind of gets their blender stuff going. Especially after the first half, it seemed like in Oklahoma City was still giving up some of those kind of lapses in the corner on threes, not on a drive and a kick out, but where the ball movement's going and Chet Holmgren was out late or Hartenstein was out late. The second half, they were sprinting out to those. Nesmith and Toppin were getting run off the 3-point line. I thought Oklahoma City did a poor job of that in the second half of game one and a really good job of it in the second half of game two. And that made a big difference in terms of what their defensive approach looked like overall. It's not that I thought they necessarily played like a much more impressive defensive attack, but I thought schematically they were smarter, stayed home, and were safer. And because they already have the physical advantage in terms of athleticism and hands and everything else, they don't need to be as aggressive as we saw in game one. And I think that it took a while for Indiana to adjust to it. And that adjustment was Halliburton being more aggressive because Halliburton had to create offense to then get the Thunder to readjust. And he did that too late. He activated way too late in this game. You could see he started to figure out where he could get to his spots, but he needed to do that late in the second quarter, early in the third quarter. By the fourth quarter, when he did it, it felt toothless, even though all of us kind of had that little latent tension of like, oh shit, are we doing this again? But it was,
Hey, I'm more than willing to admit, as a Thunder fan, I was definitely feeling the you got to put this away kind of notion.
yeah.
But once it got under 4 minutes, but you're right. I mean, going into the fourth quarter, Halliburton had 5 points. He has 12 in the fourth quarter. He starts to activate himself and assert himself a little bit more dominantly, but that didn't happen until much too late. I did want to ask you, how did this game feel to you? Did this feel more indicative of what you thought the series is going to be like, or was this more of an aberration to you?
No, well, to me, it felt like Oklahoma City made the corrections that if they can continue to play in this style, this is why we all thought the series wasn't going to be as close as it should be. Because one of the other things that I think happened, and I'll be interested to see it, but we just don't have the numbers for it right now. I think the Pacers' time of possession was probably a lot longer in this game, too. And because it just felt like the Pacers weren't and when I say going as quickly, I don't mean getting out and going. They were still attacking off the makes and stuff like that. It just felt like the way the Thunder were operating slowed down the Pacers' half court kind of action and pace. And if that's the case, and it is like the Thunder got very good performances by Jay Will and Chet. I mean, I think Jay Will was 6 of 14. Chet finally looked like himself, but nothing that we saw from either of those guys was like a standout or so impressive that I don't think that's there. This is what I expect from the rest of this series. This is why I think the Pacers probably sneak one more game where they get going from three, but Oklahoma City now looks comfortable. And I didn't think they ever, like, even as much as I was worried about the Pacers' ability to possibly come back in this game because we've seen it so much, this didn't feel like game one to me. It felt like the Thunder constantly had control, and every time the Pacers were trying to climb uphill, it felt like a lot more exerting effort, opposed to the last game where every time the Pacers came back, it just felt like, they're still too in this. I never really worried about how the Thunder were approaching their offensive attack outside of short spurts, and I thought Dagnall made good usage of timeouts, including one where it was a 14-point lead by the Pacers, but you could see the Pacers getting a little bit of confidence.
Was that
I
around the time they did that like 10-0 run? There was
Yeah,
like
that was in the,
9-0,
the second
10-0
quarter
run.
where Miles Turner
Yes.
woke up and got going. And shout out to Miles Turner. Maybe the Pacers found something out because one, he was missing shots in the first half that he's normally going to make. I thought that he got good looks, but he was much more effective in that third quarter in the short roll and in the intermediate game. And the combination of that and Halliburton, if you're doing that earlier, those are the things that are going to create the mismatches and the matchup problems that have to make OKC work. And you just didn't see it in the first half.
I was going to ask you, how did you feel? You and I talked about the Casey Wallace minutes, and we talked about the lack of Isaiah Hartenstein minutes. If you look at game two, I'm sorry, Casey Wallace, he starts yet again. So he plays 23 minutes. Isaiah Hartenstein off the bench plays 22 minutes. What do you make of that adjustment?
Well, I mean, everybody knew what was going to happen. We were going to see the double big lineup stretched out and played a little bit more. Dagnall was really smart with how he employed it because he employed it at the times where it was Thomas Bryant and Obi Toppin on the floor.
Yep.
Because the Pacers are kind of in a double big look, but you can really abuse both of those guys. Because even though Holmgren's not a very good rebounder, Toppin's not particularly either, and then obviously Hartenstein gets to match Bryant. And those matchups, I didn't see what the plus minus is, but we know that the Thunder clearly had the advantage there. And Hartenstein got going and got some confidence. And Hartenstein's rebounding was much more impactful. Now, one of the things we're going to get caught on in the rebounding numbers in this is going to be Hartenstein playing more minutes. The other part of it, too, is that the Thunder didn't miss a million shots. I mean, the part
I
of
was
the reason,
looking it up while you were saying.
yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that got lost in that game one was, yes, the Pacers did out rebound them. And late in the game, I had some serious questions about what the Thunder were doing in terms of their roster late, not playing a big, and why that helped facilitate that with the Pacers. But in general, a lot of it, and you even saw it in the second quarter of this game, it's like long misses are going to create rebounding opportunities kind of both directions. The Pacers are taking a lot of threes. The Thunder missed a ton of shots. They didn't miss as many shots, not as many rebounding opportunities. So Hartenstein's impact was big, but people are going to oversell it in the next coming days because so many people wanted to see that. They didn't close with the double big. The double big wasn't a huge part of what they did, but that was also because Holmgren was so much better. He played better. He stood up better. He played better on both sides. And that at the end of it, that like you and I never overreacted to the Casey Wallace thing. The whole conversation about, oh, they used their trump card. Like, first of all, Mark Dagnall is such a
That's
smart
not a trump
coach.
card.
No, he wouldn't have used it. He's not dumb enough to use whatever he thinks his biggest card to play is in the first quarter or in the first game, pardon me, of the series. But more importantly, they have so many other things that they can go to, and they're comfortable in so many looks. And Dagnall made the point. It wasn't, hey, we were stressed and we were doing this. Hey, we were comfortable with Casey Wallace. He started 43 games. He looked good in the first half of that game. He played what you needed from him in this game. This was what they were hoping for, and this was kind of to plan.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a regression to the mean that happens with games like this. I mean, Indiana in the first game, they shot 46% as a team. I mean, Miles Turner comes into this game, he's shooting 31% for the playoffs. He was shooting 41% in the regular season, but he's 31% in the playoffs. And then Indiana, after going 46% in the first game from the three-point line, they shoot 35%. I mean, these things matter. The fact that like it's a little bit of a make or miss league. And whenever you have Chet going 2 for 9 from the field in game one, they go 6 for 11 in game two. You're like, okay. Whenever you look at statistical variations like these, especially when it comes to like home court matters,
Yeah.
you're going to see a little bit of a difference and a little bit of a variation. Oklahoma City, there's no doubt about this. They choked the first game away, but they also shot 40% from the field. How often do you think that's going to happen to an Oklahoma City Thunder team? And they still, like I said, they have to win 4 out of the next 6. They just won 1. So they have 3 of the next 5. That's how you have to win the series. But that's exactly what Indiana, it's the same odds that they have. And Indiana has been the best three-point shooting team in the playoffs this entire postseason.
Yeah.
So if you're able to withstand their hot shooting, if you can like be defensive minded enough to force enough turnovers to make them think about it, if you can make them miss enough shots that they will, have to work, you feel pretty confident going into Indiana, I would imagine. But the home court advantage is obviously, Indiana took that in game one. So how do you see game three playing out?
I think game three will be a closer game. I still have the Thunder winning a game three just because I think the Thunder figured out what they need to do. We're going to see one more game in this series where Halliburton has something crazy where he goes like for 35. The Pacers shoot the hell out of the ball. I don't expect it to be game three, but I do think it'll happen in this series. But from this point forward, um, I'll be interested to see what the Pacers now adjust, because that's the bigger question for me. Is I actually think that what is their kind of ace in the hole? Like, we have already seen the Thunder make kind of a big structural change to what they're doing. The Pacers don't really have that same type of thing. We saw Mathurin play a little bit more, which I was expecting.
I
He had
did.
a he had a really confusing game to me. There was moments that looked really good.
He looked
I thought
really good.
I
And
thought
there
he
were
I
moments where I
thought
was
he
like,
held,
get him off the floor.
yeah, I thought he held up well against Shea, except for Shea felt incredibly comfortable against him. So it was tough because I didn't think Mathurin was playing bad defense for the most part. He got his hands in a couple times because he tends to do that. He loses focus. But
He's a physical defender.
he's a physical defender. He got some stuff downhill and finished well for them. But I don't know that, like, Mathurin getting more minutes at what the cost of Nemhard, at the cost of Neesmith. None of those things to me all of a sudden becomes a mechanism for dynamic change. So it'll be interesting to see what the Pacers do. We saw both teams go zone a little bit more. I don't love that for the Pacers because if I'm the Thunder, as we've talked about, I'm just going to go too big and attack over the top over and over again. I think the Thunder have a pretty quick answer for the Pacers trying to vary up to zone. So that'll be my biggest thing. Let's see in the next couple of days. We'll have a lot of talk because the next game's not till Wednesday. What Rick Carlisle says in his post game from what he saw, there was some effort issues from the Pacers as well. I don't think they came out with the same type of verve you would have expect from them to start the game. And we knew the Thunder were going to come out energetic. It's part of why I thought Chet was going to have a dunk early and he didn't get it till the second quarter. But you just knew that they were going to be kind of looking to kind of imprint themselves, getting up and down a little bit more, although they weren't as frenetic, which we already talked about, which was to their credit. They played that
Yeah.
controlled chaos that's their best version of them.
I think you're absolutely right. And especially whenever you're getting 38 points from Wiggins and Caruso off the bench, I think Oklahoma City had a little bit less to worry about. I don't think that Indiana even played like a poor game. I think this was just kind of what you should have expected from game one. If game one had ended the exact same way where they won by like 14 or 15 points, Oklahoma City, you wouldn't have been surprised. You're a little bit more surprised that they were able to hang around and get that late series win against Oklahoma City. And now they go back to Indiana. Do you have any expectations for game three? Do you have any expectations about uh, any kind of changes Indiana might make or any kind of changes that Oklahoma City might make as they go on the road?
I thought I was going to see it more in this game, but I would be shocked if we don't see somewhere like 10 field goal attempts from Tyrese Halliburton, even if it's just because Carlisle is forcing him to do so. Because of the way that the Thunder were staying home, he's going to have that intermediate space available. So he's going to have to show that float game, try to get a little bit more into his drive game. You saw it again in the fourth quarter. He saw what to attack, and that's because of what the Thunder were doing schematically. And so now that counter attack is going to have to be contingent upon Nemhard and Halliburton both getting into that intermediate space and trying to create a little bit more offensively from that range. Siakam wasn't great in this game either, and that's a little undervalued, but I think that was
Yeah.
because we didn't see the Pacers able to get kind of up and down the same way with pace and tempo that really
It was
utilizes
a
his
little bit,
mismatch.
it was a bit of the limitation of his shot.
Yeah.
Like he only shot 11 times, if I'm looking at this correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
three of 11.
the conversation with him is always that he has to be fed for him to eat, right? And so because their offensive
The
game wasn't
reason
going
that
the
he's
way.
operating so well is because he's got Tyrese Halliburton, who's a consistent feeder.
And TJ McConnell. I mean, he's got
Hey,
two guys that are great at being able to get guys going, but both of those guys best are in their best when the pace is kind of going this way a little bit more, and their offense wasn't functioning that way, and he wasn't making shots. And there's always going to be that question with him. I mean, he shot the ball very well as a pacer, but we know in general he's a streaky shooter. If he's not hitting his outside shots, and look, shout out to Caruso and Wiggins because their ability to stand up against him defensively in the times when they were on the floor really makes a big difference in terms of the way that Thunder have to deal with him. And that's, we saw them try to post up Wallace. They weren't able to post up those guys the same way when Siakam's on the floor. They're a little bit bigger. They're a little bit more physical defenders. And that's not, Wallace is a better defender than Wiggins, but Wiggins did a good job of using his size.
Can we have a conversation real quick about Jalen Williams? It still felt like he didn't have a great game. If you look at the numbers objectively, you would say that wasn't a really great performance, but he felt very impactful. How did you view his presence in game one? Because he had a really rough, I'm sorry, in game two, because he had a really rough game one.
I thought the thing that we saw, which is the most important thing that I want to see out of a team's second best operator, is when Shai wasn't on the floor, he was aggressive in a way that really made a difference and put the Pacers defense on its heels, particularly in that second quarter, as we talked about. When he was operating out of the pick and roll, he was good. He was getting downhill. He got that and one. He was doing a good job of utilizing his length, but also utilizing his change of pace. Like shit, whereas Shai so often turns that corner, is immediately getting downhill. J-Dub does a little bit better job of stringing out the defense, changing kind of his variety of his speeds and things. And I just thought that that's all they needed. I immediately wrote down in the second quarter, how do both teams' offensive function without their engines, because we looked at the second quarter start with both Shai and Tyrese off the floor. Jay Williams made a big difference in that stretch because of what he could do. And I thought he played a good game. He didn't play outside of himself. I thought his shot selection was better than the first game as well.
I actually honestly agree. I would agree with that. I know he didn't still shoot it as well as you would expect him to shoot it, but the shots that he was taking felt a little bit more appropriate.
Yeah.
And I was fine with it, even though he came up 5 of 14, not a very high percentage shot. I liked the shots that he was taking. Aaron, real quick with you. How do you feel about game three? What's your prediction?
I think game three is going to be a much closer affair. I expect this one to be a Halliburton offensive explosion. So I think he'll probably have one of his bigger games. So like a 26-10, something like that. It'll come down late, but I still have the Thunder winning by like 5.
Interesting. All right. I like that.
How about yours? Yeah.
It's a tough one. The first one going back home, Indiana has such a fervent fan base. I'm gonna say it's a game winner by Halliburton again.
Oh wow.
Say that Indiana wins by 1. That's the way it feels to me. That's the way it feels to me. I think Oklahoma City goes down 2-1 and they really have to respond. That is my feeling.
Ooh.
That's my thought. I think Halliburton keeps the game close all game. I think Oklahoma City has like a slight lead going into the fourth quarter. And I think Halliburton closes this game out the way that he's done 8 different times this postseason. I think it's number 9. And Oklahoma City down 2-1.
I don't know if you saw this stat as we close out, but this was one of the, Tom Haberstroh is obviously like one of the stat gurus. He had a stat where in the last 2 minutes of a game on a shot that's game tying or taking the lead, Tyrese Halliburton is 13 of 15 this season.
13 of 15. I was going to bring that stat up.
Yeah.
It seems important when a guy is damn near perfect on game-winning or game-tying shots.
He's got an over 100 on his effective field goal percentage on those shots because of the threes.
This guy is, I mean, if Indiana ends up winning the championship this year, Richard Jefferson is going to have one of those calls that lives in infamy because he's going to be the one. He's not ready for the moment. He is the moment.
I think that's what he
said in game one. I'm sorry. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's good juice.
RJ's gotten really good at this really fast, by the way, and all credit to him. Like, I like him so much more than I even did like 3 years ago.
You just alienated a lot of Kings fans. They hate Richard Jefferson. Apparently, he does not treat them with very much respect.
Well, I mean, Kings fans base complaining about the way the medium treats them is not really something I'm going to give a whole lot of like energy to. So,
How many Kings fans are listening to us right now?
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I
we might
mean
have
they're
like
out of
one.
the playoffs. I get it. I get it. But this has been. I mean, it was the exact kind of response I expected from Oklahoma City. I think it's the exact kind of response that you expected from Oklahoma City. We're tied up at one with very entertaining, a very fun NBA Finals ahead of us. I'm very excited about Game 3. Cannot wait to get into it. Aaron, go. No, please
I,
go.
I do just want to say one more thing, and we've been, kind of talking about this all season and really for about a year and a half, but the league needs to be concerned with how poised a team this young is considering these circumstances and the way that they looked because I think that the expectation for a lot of people was that they were just going to come out and be physically dominant. And I didn't really think that it was a matter of them coming out and just being imposing because they were younger and more athletic. I thought that they were more imposing and better. I thought that they were better tactically. I thought that they were better organized kind of in general and that they looked more up to the moment. Now, that's not a knock on the Pacers, who I fully expect to respond. But the difference in terms of the age of these two teams and who's been there kind of as a general thing, the Pacers having guy like Pascal Siakam. I mean, obviously Alex Caruso's won a title, but it's just
He's
it,
not. He's not your second best player.
no, exactly. And just the fact that the Thunder already look like this on their first finals run as a response is just crazy when we think about what this team should hopefully look. A lot of things happen, but what this may look like as a franchise in 3 years when these guys have like, really have like the muscle memory and just the know-how and what it takes to be here and all that. Like kudos to them. Shout out to Mark Dagnall because we asked a lot of questions about what his response would be, and I thought he responded brilliantly.
I really did too. And you and I talked about this and well, we talked about it in a text message with David Rushing. And we said that we expect to see a lot more J Will and we expect to see a lot more Kenrich Williams and a lot less AJ Mitchell. And again, I don't hate the AJ Mitchell thing.
No, yeah,
It didn't make a lot of sense to me.
yeah,
And whenever you see him like he reads the room, he makes the adjustment. You're like, okay, this guy seems to understand who his team is. And it's just Kenrich Williams being 6'7". It's just such a plus for a team that lacks a little bit of like traditional size.
yeah, and
I mean,
versatile. And like you said, he plays within himself. You don't ever have to worry about
exactly.
Kendrick Williams screwing the pooch because he's decided he wants to cook. Like,
What is that? I think this came up on the Bill Simmons podcast, but you're talking about Doc Rivers had a quote about Rick Carlisle, and he said something along the lines of like, whenever you give this guy a team, well, that's the team it's going to be. He doesn't make the team adjust to his style. He
yeah,
looks at the players that he has and he makes the adjustment to his style based on what their, skills or lack thereof are. So, Rick Carlisle is always going to make another adjustment. Game 3,
yeah,
he's going to make a decision about the double big lineup. Maybe he goes really small. Maybe he forces out a lineup of a little bit more of Thomas Bryant and Miles Turner. Not sure, but Rick Carlisle's a really smart coach. He's got a lot of really good guards in his repertoire as well.
and in fairness, there's a couple shots there that if Obi Toppin hits the exact same threes that he hit in game one,
Yeah, he was
we
1 for 5 in game 2.
yeah, and we may be looking at because there was a few times, and Doris brought it up this time in the broadcast, but you and I talked about it on Threads, and we talked about it on the last podcast. Isaiah Hartenstein tends to get caught sagging. The Pacers didn't make him pay in this game, which allows for him to be on the floor longer. So we'll
Yeah.
see. Look, it may just come down to Toppin and Turner hitting those threes in the second quarter, and it renders Hartenstein more difficult to play on the defensive end. Like it's that simple. And
That's exactly what I thought was going to happen in the Minnesota series.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought that you got Jaden McDaniels and Nas Reed that were going to make him pay, and those guys just didn't hit the shots that you would have expected them to make.
Yeah, particularly Nas Reed, obviously, when he went on
Yeah,
that.
Nas Reed had him
Yeah,
let it go.
yeah, when he went straight Mr. Freeze and missed 17 straight threes over the course of his
Not
playoff run.
complaining, but also I would like you to notice that I did switch shirts. This is from Theopolis in Oklahoma City, a great place to get fan made shirts. This is the shirt that I will now continue to wear as Oklahoma City is now tied up 1-1 in the NBA Finals. Aaron, do you have anything?
Before we check out, did you explain to the listeners your face paint?
Oh, no, I did not.
They might as well know since they sat
I've
with
been
us
here
for
on
45
YouTube
minutes.
live this whole time with trans awareness stickers on my face. It is Pride Month in all the United States, but it is also Pride Month in Wilmington, North Carolina. This beautiful little establishment called the Husk. They've had a Pride street party kind of thing going for the last 5 years. And I met some really amazing people, trans awareness, LGBTQ awareness, all of that is essentially important. And I guess if I was going to end this podcast in any kind of way, I would say fuck ICE, fuck this Trump administration, and fuck any kind of bigot who doesn't respect human rights.
I was not
My
expecting that
partner,
sign off, but I co-signed everything.
my partner Aaron Bullwinkle would agree with everything I just say. Fuck you guys. I stand with LA. I stand with all the other people who are protesting in the United States. We love basketball, but we also love human beings even more. Aaron, anything else you want to add before I sign us off?
Perfect. No notes. Amen.